This Social Security measure gives at least some protection
for anybody to hand this out. We're asking for a chance to have the people who will receive the benefit to earn their way. The same principle established under the Social Security system in this country.
It is no longer acceptable to discuss women's rights as separate from human rights.
I know we can come together to face down the challenges of our own time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Us Democrats here on Access in Nashua. I'm Dave Tenza, chair of the Democratic City Committee. With me, as always, is Representative Ken Gage. Representative, welcome. Welcome again. Good to see you. Good, thanks. We've been gone for a little while. Schedules haven't exactly lined up, but we're back, and we have this beautiful new set here.
Isn't this, if anybody's looking at it, I'm sure they are, this is the Library of Congress. I don't think you can get a better set than that.
I don't think so, especially for two scholars like ourselves here. We're here in the library.
Is there somebody else here?
I have to say that they've undergone some changes here and upgraded the technology at Access Nashua. And they, before they made the change, they said, "Oh, it's going to be great. It's we're going to be broadcast in HD now," which I thought was a threat to you and I.
Oh yes, because of how handsome. Yeah. So
I don't know about handsome, but. We're glad to be back, and it's a busy time politically here in the state, and both up at the State House, and things are getting going on the campaign front as well. So we got a lot to talk about tonight and over the next couple months, really.
Oh,
next
yes.
6 months.
Oh, yes. So the next 6 months. What have you heard politically? You are the chairman. I mean, I am the representative. What's going on that looks interesting to you?
Well, obviously, it's as we sit here, it's the end of April. We're gearing up for the campaign season already, the summer and fall campaign. We have filing periods coming up in early June. We have a ton of great returning candidates here for Democrats in Nashua, both on the state and national levels throughout New Hampshire. So we're excited. I think people are, like any election, people are anxious to get going and to see how the campaign goes. I think it's a midterm election, meaning there's no presidential election this year. So it's a midterm congressional election, which is always a little bit more difficult to motivate people, I think, for both sides, really. But so, we understand it's going to be a lot of hard work from beginning of June and right through Election Day in November.
Well, midterm, people have to understand exactly what that means, Dave. A presidential election, everybody thought Obama was not going to do as good as he did. He not only did good, but he brought all the Democrats back. This time around, it's different. We're not going to have that energy. So midterms is probably for our Democrats or Republicans. It is really by far the election you should go to.
Right. Because
your one vote can be valued at 500 votes.
Right.
And when you think of it in terms like that, you get two people out, they got 1,000. I mean, I'm not exaggerating throughout the city. And the problem is nothing that stimulates people that much to get them to go to the polls. So it's like I'll be out there in Ward 6, and I've got to convince the people of Ward 6 that they must go to the polls, if they vote for me or not. Right. You have to go.
Right.
Because if they like me as a candidate and would like to put me back there, my wife would like to keep me up there, but then they have to go out. Right. And it's right across the board. And now we have, we've got senators, we've got, and it goes on, House, federal. Right. I mean, this is really going to be a big deal.
It is a big deal. As you said, Senator Shaheen is on the ballot again, seeking a second term in the Senate, second 6-year term. We also have the race for governor with Governor Hassan running again for a second term, and Annie Custer running for Congress. Those are three big races. Those are important races. But those races or the local races, I said, the state rep races, state senate races, are just as important. And one of the things that I like to tell people about this race is that, you know, what really the country needs now, what the state of New Hampshire needs now, is some consistency and some stability. And, you know, a lot of things aren't going exactly as well as we'd hoped for. Economic recovery is coming along, still coming along, but maybe not as robust as everyone would like. But if we have another change in Congress or in the state, it's just going to upend everything again, throw everything back into more turmoil. There'll be less stability for the economy to grow, for businesses to really know what's going on. Really, what people need to think about this election is who's going to do the best in keeping things moving forward.
Well, you're absolutely right. We do need stability, and it seems that here in the House of Representatives, instead of 3-1, we were 297 to 103. That was awful.
Right.
Now it's 40, 50 votes, and so Republicans are making strides up there. They're getting some of the things that they want.
Sure.
And because there are a lot of Democrats who are not completely, totally agree with the Democratic Party. It always happens that way. And there are some who do not agree with the Republican Party, and they're not being put under as much pressure as they used to be put on. They're still pretty hard with the Republicans to push them. But the Democrats are saying, okay, have I heard more than once, look, vote your conscience. This is what we need as Democrats. But if you really feel not strong about it, you feel like you would like to vote differently, then go ahead. Now, I have said this, and I've been criticized for it. There are times I haven't wanted to vote against my party. I am a Democrat, but I didn't want to vote for the Republicans. So I've got up, I've walked 25 feet, and I've stood outside until the vote was over. Now, I didn't vote against the party, but I didn't vote for the other side. Sure. In other words, and that's happened, but never have I ever done that with a very important vote.
What kind of things would you do that for, or have you done that for?
All right. I would have done that for the gas tax. I did vote against that. I'm going to tell you point blank period. They really didn't, in a sense, need my vote because I knew they were going to win, but I just felt that until we can come to terms with gaming, we'll get into one of my big reasons is that we've got to pay back $175 million. That's a bill that I, yesterday for the gas tax, I got up and I went outside. And when they called roll call, I said, look, I can't do that. I've just got to be really honest. So I went back and I voted against it. But that's the type of thing that I would do. But there's a lot of small things that I have, because this is very serious. This is a big one.
Sure.
But I knew that it was going to be won, not by 1 or 2, as we won 25, 30 votes.
Sure.
That's all right. But most of the times when I've done that, it's been small votes. It's nothing major. It's just I didn't agree with the Democrats, and I certainly didn't agree with the Republicans.
And so you mentioned that was a different tone that House leadership had struck this year with allowing people to vote their conscience and not putting a lot of pressure. How is that different from what you saw in the past?
Well, it happened earlier, the first term. A Republican was sitting across from me, who's been there a long time, and I'm in a Commerce Committee. And besides me is Representative Rice, who is a Republican. And we're talking back and forth before the vote, and he agreed with me, and he voted on the Democrat. This is just at a committee. The Republican got up and said, hey, what did you do that for? You know what we talked about. And it's like we're in a committee and everybody's listening, and we've got a lot of people, media in the back, and so I just turned around and said, hey, leave him alone. Give the guy a break. I mean, it's that type of pressure. And the last term, or term before this, when we were the minority, there was an anti-bullying bill brought up.
Sure.
Brought up by a Republican against Republicans. In other words, this was not an anti-bullying bill that you'd go out of the bullies on a school. It's against Republicans, by Republicans. So when you get something like that, it's really chaotic. But the Speaker has calmed everything down. She's mixed Republicans and Democrats together, where I've got Republicans, behind me and in front of me and to the sides, but there's Democrats also.
Sure.
And that really has kind of really brought people together. We will disagree. And I have Manju Puri sitting right next to me.
Latha, great
Latha?
representative from
Oh, she
Ward
is.
8.
She is just.
She's impressive.
Watch out for her, boy.
You mentioned House leadership, and you mentioned Speaker Norelli, Terry Norelli from
Yes.
Portsmouth. And she's made an announcement this week that she's not going to seek re-election, which means she won't, if Democrats control the House again next term, they'll be opening a speaker position for the speakership. You've been there while Terry Norelli has been Speaker. How would you say she's done, or what compliments would you
Well,
have
as
for
you
her?
know, I didn't vote for her because we had a candidate
We did.
from Nashua, and I didn't want my first vote to be against Nashua.
Sure.
And I told a lot of people, it doesn't make a difference if you like Terry Norelli or not. This is your city, Nashua. You vote for Nashua. So I didn't vote for her. But having said that, she's been incredible. She has let people speak as long as they wanted to speak. And what happens when you get people who speak too much, really the crowd, meaning us, groans
Starts to
when a
stir.
person keeps going. So it's sort of like that takes care of itself.
Sure.
But with O'Brien, and we've talked about this before, he had 9 minutes per subject, no matter what it was. Didn't make any difference what it was. It was 9 minutes. So
Per subject or per speaker?
no, for subject. So what would happen was I got up there twice. 2 people spoke before me, and I was third. And he said, "I'm sorry, you can't speak. It's 9 minutes is over."
Wow.
And I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Well, that's the House rule. We voted on it." Well, if it's 297 to 103,
Right.
but now when you want to say something, and there are a lot of people who are not articulate, and some talk too much.
Sure.
But they get out there and they say what they want. This has done a great deal. She has to be, applauded by Republicans and Democrats.
Sure.
There's no question about that.
Well, it's clear the tone the last year and a half has been completely different than it was from 2010 to 2012. And so, that works best for both parties, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure there are things that happened that Republicans were happy with in the House this year, and obviously the Republicans control the Senate now in New Hampshire, so they have
And
their
it's
say.
awful. I'm sorry, but it's awful. I mean,
In the Senate?
yeah. Oh, it's
More contentious.
Oh, it is. Well, we can talk about certainly the Medicaid fiasco,
Sure.
which held it up for.
Let me stop you. Let me
Okay.
ask you.
Yeah.
So if Democrats take back the House, will there be a lot of people who are going to vie for the Speaker's position?
Well, I think it's like, let's look at it in a Nashua way, okay? You're in the Democratic Party,
Sure.
obviously. You've been chosen to lead the Democratic Party. You have people on your right, your left, who you've worked with.
Sure.
If somebody said, who would you vote for? You'd say, well, I have 2 people who are in the party, been here a long time, and they're very capable. That's the same thing up in Concord. She's had a lot of people beside her, new people this term. Now, it hasn't been all the same. New
Right.
people this term. And I think that that's the way it would work. And I can think of 2 or 3 people. I can think of one particular man and one particular lady I think would definitely go for it. It's not something that you can, stand up in the middle of the 400 people and say, I want to be Speaker.
Sure,
It's,
right.
It's politics.
It is politics, right? And believe me, we're not counting our chickens before they're hatched here. We know that in order to take back the House, it's going to be a hard-fought battle all throughout the election. So, but let's talk about the reasons why Democrats are going to take back the New Hampshire State House this year. And I think we have a lot of great issues to run on, thanks to you folks up there and all the hard work that you did, passing some very big pieces of legislation that are going to help a lot of people in the state, help a lot of people individually, help out businesses in the state as well. First and foremost, we've talked a lot about it on this show, is the Medicaid expansion that finally got through the Senate, which the governor signed into law and which will take effect, is it July 1st?
Yes.
Which will help about 58,000 working people in the state be able to afford coverage.
61% of them are women. I always make that a point. Republicans are having a hard time with women. Why they would do that? $1 million a day we lost, $365 million.
Right.
They 48 to 50 something now, 1,000 are on or will have insurance. They will be cared for, both men and women. You know, we want them well. We want people working. We don't want a person going into the hospital when he or she has to be picked up and carried in. We'd like someone to go to a doctor who's not feeling well, and a doctor can find the problem and take care of it. So this is so important, and it's something that the Democrats must absolutely use in their campaigns, the important thing. And Obamacare, all of a sudden, you're not hearing as much now, this to jump over a little, you're not hearing as much as people say, we want to repeal it. We want to repeal it.
Right.
We want to repeal it. And there are 4 southern states that did not vote for Obama, who have, I think, Republican governors and senators, and they have been crying to get rid of Obamacare. They're losing. Mitch McConnell, who has been there, a staunch Republican, is ahead by 1 point.
Sure.
And when you look at stuff like this, all of a sudden you're going to take insurance away from a poor state. And when I say poor state, I mean there's not much industry. We'll use from Arkansas to some of the southern states.
Right. And some of those southern states with the rural poverty that they have is different than what we have here in Nashua, at least. I'm sure there are parts of New Hampshire where
there is
similar.
rural, yes,
rural parts where, especially up north in particular, where a lot of the industry has moved out. But you know, this Medicaid expansion is really, you know, I think Republicans, the elected Republicans, try to be maybe too cute with this bill, putting in the 3-year clause in there where the legislature has to, you know, in a sense, vote again on this in 3 years. I know it makes them feel good, but I think it gives us a great issue to run on, because once these benefits are, you know, are given, and they're not even given. We've talked about this before on the show, where New Hampshire as a state is a donor state to the federal government.
That's correct.
We give more money to the federal government than we get back.
And some of the southern states may get $2.50 for every dollar they put in. Yeah.
So I mean, this is the way for us to get back some of the tax money that we've already given to the federal government, put it to good use, and really, I mean, it's going into it's essentially paying hospitals for the care that they're already providing for people. And, you know, you said it before, paying people, you know, allowing people to have a primary care physician so they can go and get checked out when they need to, and cut off any illnesses at the beginning, so, you know, that little cold doesn't turn into pneumonia.
And I've had to fight this, you also, because you know you are the chairman, but myself and people up in Concord. When you use statistics like, well, infant mortality, Cuba is ahead of the United States on infant mortality. Wait a minute, are you saying that a child is safer, in a sense, in Cuba compared to the United States? Now, that's kind of an awkward thing to say.
Right.
We're the best country in the world. Well, we got the best health care. People are coming from other countries who can pay for it. But right in this country, people can't get it.
Right.
But now with this Medicaid, and by the way, that was part of the Obama plan.
Right.
This was, people are kind of not putting this to the same thing. They're not, some people aren't connecting that Obamacare in its totality, part of it is Medicaid, to put more people on Medicaid. So that's part of it. And so we got a lot of things to work with here.
So this is a time, or you're past the time in the legislature known as is it the crossover period?
We're past that, yeah.
Past that period, and now what do they call this period that you're in now?
That's easy. Crazy.
Crazy, right?
You asked me tonight. You said, "What about the phone?" And we'll talk about that.
Right.
I said, "Well, what bill is that?" You said, "Well, you passed it." And I'm going, "Yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff up there. Everybody's getting a little." This is really a nuts time, because what's happening is the Senate is sending over bills, a lot that we have sent to the Senate. They're coming back, and the Senate also has bills of their own that they've sent out. So we're working with the Senate, and this is where it gets really tricky, because usually it starts in the House, goes to the Senate, they take it and they rework it.
Sure.
Nobody can leave anything alone. Believe me, I don't care what it is. So then they send it back, and then us in the House, we can't leave it alone, so we send it back to the Senate. The Senate can say, well, we'll amend it and then pass it. They'll send it back to the House. Then the House will vote on it, and it'll go back to the Senate. And then finally someone says, let's table the damn thing, which means we'll just leave it here, we'll talk about it, not this year. So it's really a crazy time. And how our Senators Gilmore and Lasky can do this, they've got to be superhuman. They are in from committee meeting to committee meeting to committee meeting, right back and forth all around. Now they're sitting down, and it's so much work. These people, we must not forget them. They're also, up for this term they're running, obviously.
Obviously, right, and that's Senator Lasky and Senator Gilmore. They do a great job for the city of Nashua, and they have for years.
And I understand they will be coming on with you, so.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
Senator Gilmore has expressed interest.
We'll take the cameras and go to their house.
We will. We'll go to their house. We'll go to they do a radio show, so we'll go to their studio.
That's correct. That's correct.
Maybe we can help each other up. But the other race, obviously, which doesn't get talked about all that much, unfortunately, is the governor's counselor race with Executive Counselor Pignatelli.
Yes,
in that seat.
She's really an important person.
She is.
She's reasonable. She has the perfect nature for the job. She's just one of those really special people. And but the worst part, I always say there's two things. The worst part is running, but worse than that is winning, because that's where the work begins. Right. And then all of a sudden, winning is a lot less than doing the job. Sure. But as you're doing it, it doesn't seem as like winning is everything.
Sure.
But
it's difficult too. You're all running every 2 years, whether you're running for state representative or senator or executive council. It's every 2 years, so there's really not a whole lot of downtime when you're getting into office. You have about a year that you get to serve.
That's
a year and a half, and then it's election season again, every time. So.
After the first year is over, everybody's saying you're going to run again. I mean, it really goes right up. It goes up to that. But people have to understand, and I tell everybody this. I talk to a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people who come to the State House, the lobbyists. I tell them all, if you find a representative, and I mean I'm not just lobbyists. I'm talking everyone. If you find a state representative, you help him or her out. When I go to a house and I knock on the door and they say that they're a Democrat, but they're not going to vote, or you can't put a sign on my lawn, or I wouldn't give you a dime because I don't like politicians, and then they all complain. Yeah. This happens to Republicans also. Sure. You must help the Democrats, you must help the whole system. Someone comes to your door, usually people are really nice, don't misunderstand me. But if somebody comes to your door, and if you like them, or you voted for them before, if you can afford a couple dollars, believe it or not, $2 or $3, that's all the person really needs, or say, you can put a sign on my lawn. Right, that doesn't cost anything, yep. That is so important. It is, and it raises the reps or senators' visibility, and that's, it's very important. Unfortunately, not everyone is tied in or reading the papers as much as we would think or we would hope, but
you know, there are a lot of important issues that affect people on a day-to-day basis that happen up in Concord or happen at City Hall in Nashua or all over the place. So we do have a great tradition here in New Hampshire of being active, but you know, clearly it's not to the levels that people like you or I would like to see. It'd be great if voting rates were up at the 80% mark rather than the 20% mark for adults.
I have a theory about that, and I haven't talked to the Secretary of State about it. And it's funny because I've been meaning to. I'm sure there's a reason for it. Why don't we have several days? Why don't we have a Tuesday in November is nice, but how about a Saturday in November? Right. How about a Saturday and a Monday? Mm-hmm. How about a Saturday and a Tuesday? Sure. To let people, how about on a Saturday you open it, let's say 10 o'clock in the morning and you stay open until 8 o'clock. That's not a full day, really. Right. This gives more people the opportunity. Right. But to say you've all got to be there on a Tuesday, right? It's really a lot to ask of people, especially if they're working. Right. Right. That's a great point. There's no reason it couldn't be expanded, and there are plenty of other states that do that. That do early voting and have experimented, so I'm sure we could learn from their experiences as well. Yes, and the Republicans don't like it because it seems that when there's more time, more Democrats go out than Republicans. Sure. And that's the way it is now, but that could change. Right. Absolutely. This is politics. It is. It is. Speaking of politics, let's talk a little bit about the more national races, we'll call them, on the ticket. If you don't mind moving on. I don't know if there's anything else. No, there's plenty of stuff we can talk about in New Hampshire. I'm sure we will pop back here. Sure. The biggest, I think, race that's going to drive the election, drive a lot of the outside money in the election, certainly for New Hampshire, is Senator Shaheen's race against whoever the Republican is. I think we maybe all wrongly assume that Scott Brown is going to have a good chance to win the nomination for Republicans, which I'm not sure what that says for the Republican Party in New Hampshire, that Scott Brown thinks that he can move up to the state this year and run for a Senate seat. Well, sometimes I say Republicans and Democrats, and a lot of people have to understand, I'm not talking about you if you're a Democrat or a Republican, especially Republicans, because I'm mad at them, but not you. I'm mad at the politicians. Sure. I would say Republicans would have to say that at this particular point, that probably he looks the best. Mm-hmm. Having said that, if that's what they have and they think that's the best, who's really not a person from New Hampshire, honestly. I mean, he's had a place up here, but that, compared to, we'll use governor from rep to Senate to governor to federal senator. Gene Shaheen is the qualifications between one and the other. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, yes, Scott Brown was there for what, a couple of years maybe, or 3 years, but no, it's. I think that's so weak, as you have mentioned, for the Republicans to think that this is the great savior for them. Well, I just think it's so funny that Republicans' chief concern, as long as I've been up here in New Hampshire, is that all these people from Massachusetts are moving up here and ruining our state. That's what Republicans have said, and the last two prominent, Republicans in the state have been Bill O'Brien, who came up here from Boston, from his Boston law firm, to settle in Mount Vernon to run for a House seat, and then now it's Scott Brown. So the New Hampshire Republican Party has to be, wondering. It has to be doing a little soul searching to see what they're doing wrong, because, Democrats have Senator Shaheen. Governor Hassan was a state senator for before she became governor. I was on a committee with her, and she ran the committee, House, Senate. And I was studying FRM, which was from this. If you live for another 50 years, you'll always hear FRM. which was the great Ponzi scheme
Oh,
that
right,
took
right.
place here in the state of New Hampshire. She ran the Senate Committee of Commerce. She was in Commerce, like I'm in
okay,
Commerce,
sure.
but I'm in the House. But one thing about O'Brien, a lot of people know that I did a show with Bill O'Brien called The Art of Politics. And yesterday, Bill said he's no longer going to do this show. He is very, very busy. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'd like to think I ran him off. I mean, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Jesus, how could just a simple person from Ward 6 beat up on a person who, by the way, who has received the Conservative of the Year here in New Hampshire? The award was given to Newt Gingrich, and I ran him off TV? Oh, I could hear him now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, again, it says a lot about where the Republican Party is headed in New Hampshire. They have, two candidates in the governor's race. There's a young kid, we'll say, not even kid, he's my age, in his early 30s, who has done a lot. He's run for the state party chair before. He lost to the current state party chair. And then they have a former BAE executive who, again, has been living in Maryland for a while, has claimed residency in Maryland for tax purposes, at least, while he was living there, just so he can get a break and not have to pay the Maryland state income tax. But he's the candidate, the supposed chosen candidate by the Republicans to run against Governor Hassan to try to beat her, because of his business background, clearly. But
well, I have been in businesses, and when I hear a businessman or woman say, "I've been in business, I know how to do it," well, I've been in business also, and I've also on my third term as state representative, and it's not the same.
It's not the same at all.
It is getting 400 people to agree with you, and I would like to make sure that everyone realizes this. In the last 10 years, there's only been one, or I should say two people, a Representative Munson Gidge, who got a vote through the House of Representatives, 368 to 0. That means, talk about people working together.
Sure.
That was probably a mistake, because nobody really votes for anything.
Right.
But something like that is important to realize that can get done. When you get up to the, as you were talking about the governor, I mean, what could somebody say that this governor has done wrong?
Well, that's a great point.
I mean, what?
That's a great point.
What has she done wrong?
Nothing. I think she's managed the state very well. I think she's been reasonable. I think she's worked with Republicans in the Senate to get the Medicaid expansion, do other things that were important to her. Republicans fault her for using the gaming in her first budget, including that revenue, but it was her shot, and she was looking for that money. And to her credit, she's looking for that money to try to give back to the communities, to do things like boost the mental health system and help people who are in need here in Nashua and all over the state.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up. I would like people to know this is from the Telegraph. The former Speaker of the House, Bill O'Brien, to balance the budget, and this is sort of almost hard to explain. It's the state would charge, they call it a charge or a fee, tax, we'll say a bed in a hospital. And the hospitals would pay the state. The state would get a refund for this larger than the amount of money they got from the hospital, so they would repay the hospitals back. All right?
Sure. And this was prior to 2010, before 2010.
Oh, yes. So it started with Greg, a Republican Greg, is the one who thought that this was a great shell game.
Sure.
And both Republicans and Democrats played it because guess what? it's been working, and that's fine. Well, what happened was that our former speaker, Bill O'Brien, said, no, we're going to tax you. We're going to keep the hospital's money, and the federal money we're going to keep, and that's how we're going to balance our budget. Well, guess what? It's been ruled that that's illegal, so that means that the state of New Hampshire must pay $175 million. Let me repeat that: $175 million for a mistake that a former Speaker of the House did, and it was signed into law. All right, which means which is very complicated to explain to people. But now what? Now how is Hassan going to handle this? Maybe what she was talking about before, and a lot of people are talking about now, and it's coming up, is maybe it's time to look at gaming in a different way. A way for us to make this up a little, the money-wise, but also keep the people from going to Massachusetts, and they will be going to Massachusetts, to game and come back with less money and have spent their money someplace else. I think, and gaming's coming up next week. We'll be voting on it. I think this is very, very important, and I think this is $175 million. I don't know how they're going to make that up.
What's the state budget, the biannual budget, roughly? Is it in the billions?
Oh yes. I don't have it. I don't have the dollars and cents. And
but 175 million is a
it's
significant
a lot of.
amount.
Oh my God. What the Republicans did do is let's face it, they got in during a really rough time. All right, and if they would have said, we won't raise any more taxes, but we'll just do business as always, that would have been fine.
Sure.
But they said, oh, we'll cut this fee out, and we'll do this, and we'll take this tax away, and we'll do this, and we'll do that, and we'll do this. Well, all of a sudden, the money that they sort of gave back to the people are going to have to pay back with interest.
And so the House budget that you passed in 2012, was it restored, the tax, and was it brought back to how it used to be?
No. Everybody, we had to balance the budget.
Okay.
That's law. And I said, look, you're taking, we'll use mental health, and my thing has always been the social workers that they fired. For 465,000, they fired 4.5 social workers who do a lot with mental health.
Sure.
They came in and they sat down and they said, well, we really save $1.5 million a year.
Right.
So that's how foolish things got.
Right.
And now we're paying for that. Right. But how are we going to? Where are you going to cut the money? New Hampshire has always been pretty slim. I mean, maybe they overpay the state representatives too much, $100 a year, or the senators $100 a year. But I don't know where they can cut it, and where they're going to cut it from. They're going to take it from the people who need it the most.
Right. We're seeing the effects, unfortunately, now, I think, of the cuts that were made to mental health services, to substance abuse services. And we're seeing them in the spike in robberies within the city, spike in burglaries or thefts, and other drug-related crimes. So
suicides, which is that which is had a suicide in my family, and I understand that if this particular person would have had help, and we've had I won't say a lot, but we've had a number more of suicides, and that is mental health.
All right.
And instead of somebody going out and taking someone else's life and taking their life, they just took their life. But these are the people who need help because they can harm more than just themselves.
Sure. Right. I mean, it's not even the people who need services who are going to harm somebody or someone else. I mean, people just need a little extra. Some people with mental health issues just need someone to help them get through, certain crises that they have.
I know this is going to sound really funny, but helping them get to a doctor's appointment. A lot of people don't have the money for the medication they need. Make sure that their families are working. Sometimes a member should be extracted. Sometimes a member should be put back.
Sure.
These are the people, the 4.5 in the state. Now, with us, these are the state ones. I mean, excuse me, the Hillsborough County. These are really the county ones. Really do the tough jobs.
Sure.
The worst of the worst jobs, but they keep people out of jail. All right.
Right.
You know, you're a prosecutor.
Sure.
They also got rid of the drug court, or I should say, they got rid of part of that. I'm not sure if they got rid of all of it.
And they got rid of all of it.
They got rid of all of it. I hate to say that in Hillsborough County, and I was there. And that was 265. No, wait a minute. I think it was about $250,000. So we had a judge come in and say, look, either I can send this person to jail or send them to this, you know, to these organizations. And guess what? If they fool around in these organizations, they're going to keep an eye on them, and they're going to know. And if they bring them back here, that individual's going to jail.
Yeah. Well, luckily, there's a new push in the Superior Court for a new drug court. A couple of the judges and the Chief Justice of the Superior Court, Judge Tina Nato, you know, is you know, really pushing. They already have one in Stratford County and Rockingham County. Cheshire County has just got some federal money to start one up. I think if you look around the state and you look to see what other counties are able to do, you know, you start to see that Hillsborough County is not as well represented in programming like other counties are.
And I was on the executive council for 2 years, in where there was 4 of us, and the rest were Republicans, and we couldn't do anything.
Right.
I mean, honestly, we just couldn't do anything.
Oh, right, yeah.
And when they asked if I wanted to do that again, I said no.
No, well, we need you in there.
No, I'm not going. No, I'm not going to Hillsborough County again. Doing that again. I will. No, that's. But another combat pay.
Yeah, it is. Another thing that people should realize is that if you are elected state representative, you also sit on the county delegation.
That's correct.
Get to vote on the county budget and have say
That's correct.
on that. And
That's correct.
Get say on things like the county nursing home, the sheriff's department, the jail, the county attorney's office, and everything else that the county is involved in. So you really, I mean, as a state representative, you really have a chance to influence the community.
The budget for Hillsborough County, and it's hard to explain to people. Everything is obviously in counties. This is Hillsborough County, which is the largest, which have more people in it, etc. And our budget is $85 million, and that means that we must take that money and we must go out and take care of the nursing homes that we have. We must take care of the jails. You know, the social workers, things of this sort, and make sure we do not raise the taxes. We have the ability to raise taxes. Right. That we don't do that, and we've always haven't done that, and we've always had a surplus. Okay. We maybe too much of a surplus sometimes. We had $27 million at one time. That's a lot of money. When there are people who needed it. Right. But it's a government within a government. So if you're in as a state representative, you are in Hillsborough County. You are a member of the county. You do go and do more voting. You do go and do more work, and most of this is done at night. Sure. Okay. So you work during the day politically, I'll say at the State House. Then you go and you do this at night. And a lot of these things that, for instance, what I had to look for and stop them from closing was here in Nashville, the old courthouse that has all the records in it, and they wanted to take that and move that up to Goffstown, where they have this little house there. And I said, it's been there for over 100 years. Right. What are you going to move it for? So that was something I fought to keep, and I sort of. I was at the beginning of the fire of it, so I could turn around. That's part of my job, is to go around and make sure that everybody knows what's happening. But we saved that. They wanted to move that.
Yeah.
Those are jobs.
Right.
And the fact is that all attorneys didn't want it moved.
Right.
They didn't want it
Right.
out of Nashua. Even the attorneys in Manchester, supposedly it would have been closer. It's more difficult to get there.
Yeah.
So
Oh, people don't realize, too, that Nashua's still a county seat, so it's important to have the courthouse here.
absolutely,
And to have some presence
absolutely.
for the county. So, yeah, they're always trying to take stuff out of Nashua and move it up to Manchester or Goffstown. Not just the county, but the state as well tried to shut down the courthouse. Luckily, though, we had great people in office. We had great people, both elected officials and members of the Nashua Bar, who fought it. We were able to stop it before it happened.
You've got to remember that this is Nashua, but Hillsborough is not Nashua.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, so I've got to say that both Republicans and Democrats made sure that didn't happen.
Sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
all of a sudden, you can have Republicans who want it moved out of your city.
Right.
And they're going to convince you that it's okay. Well, no, you take jobs away from me.
Right.
You're going to really have to fight me to
Right.
do that. So when this was brought out that this was potentially could happen, the first thing I did is I ran up there and I said, "How's your roof?" I know this was part of my job. How's your roof? How's your boiler?
Yeah.
And I found out they've had a new roof within the last, let's say, 10 years.
Yeah.
A new boiler's been put in. The place is all secure. It's all alarmed. I said, "What are you going to move out of here for?"
Right.
It's going to cost you $500,000. How are you going to make that up? So that's how we kept that.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful old building, too.
It's a beautiful
Over
building.
there on Temple Street. So
That's right.
thank you for keeping it there.
Well, again, this is both all the parties, the Hillsborough County people kept it, and that was both Republicans and Democrats. But that was my job to find out and
Sure.
to report back to everybody.
Sure. So there's a lot going on. What do you think about for the rest of the legislative session? You'll break around, is it the end of June, beginning of June?
Well, my friend Bill O'Brien put me on the Liquor Commission study, and I'm not kidding you. It ended a day after the election in November. So one summer I worked literally, not every week, but I worked a couple days, 3 days a month. But think about that for a moment, how your whole life is gone. You can't go on a vacation. You can't.
That's over, though. You're not doing that anymore? Is it still
No, they
going?
can. No, well, that thing about the liquor thing is over, and we basically stopped it from changing, meaning that it was Maggie Hassan who brought in the amendment that got the Liquor Commission to run itself like a business. And since that has happened, it's been brought in $20 million extra dollars a year. So that's good. But having said that, we have law warehouses who lost an enormous contract.
Right.
That's still in an argument. Hopefully that's settled, and but we don't want to lose jobs from there either.
Right.
So it's you got to remember where you're from. If you forget where you're from, and that's what happened to a lot of other Republicans, they forgot where they were from and they were voting against the city. And then all of a sudden, the mayor says, "Well, I'm not getting the money from the state. Now I have to start cutting things down." People forget that that's what happens.
Right. It's all there's an effect, cause and effect.
Oh,
When they're up there, and
they forget. Where do you live?
Right.
I'm from Ward 6. Guess what? It's Ward 6.
And unfortunately, they look at they go up there with their ideological blinders on, and don't think about or at least don't vote, in what's really in the best interest of their constituents. I think Representative Mary Gorman from Ward 4 has a great line. She says that when she knocks on someone's door and they ask, "Well, why should I vote for you?" She says something to the effect of, "Because it's in your best interest to vote for me." And I think what she means by that is, she always looks out for Ward 4. She's done a great job doing it. So.
Well, Mary Gorman, we would call seatmates. And last term, she was sitting to my right. This term, Mangiapudi, representative sitting right beside me to my left. So Mary Gorman is one of those individuals who will knock on every person's door, and that's how you win.
Yep.
And when you see someone like Mary coming, she's not an ideologue. She's an individual who has gone against the Democrats very little. I mean, you know, like myself, we're pretty independent like that. I think, look, if the Republican Party has people going up there and having, or the Democrats, having them just vote completely Democrat or vote completely Republican, that's stupid.
Well, especially in a legislature the size of
400.
Right, 400. I mean, that's just not going to happen. You're not going to get people who are everyone on the same page all the time.
I got to tell you.
Which is fine, which is great. I mean, especially if House leadership, if they, you know, allow you to do that, that's even better. I think that's a sign of great strength within the House Democrats and Democrats in general.
Well, yesterday we had only 300, I think it was 328, I think by noon. So we've lost a lot. And we've talked about people going in, like I've been criticized because I haven't done all the roll call votes. Well, I wish they were up there yesterday and could see the people who've been there 100% of the time coughing and sneezing. And then you look up and you see when the vote takes place and you can see almost 100 are missing?
Yeah.
How did this take place? You're not feeling good. Don't go there.
Yeah.
Because you see these chairs right here? They're tighter. This is about what it is.
Is it?
I am touching Mangiapudi's skirt or her sleeve, and over here it's Representative Horrigan's. And this is how we are.
Sure.
You can never cross your legs. I mean, if you did that, you would have to be extracted out of them. It's that small.
Yeah.
So it's a great life.
I mean, it's interesting. It really is. I hope you feel it's an honor to be up there. I think it's a great experience. Everyone that I've talked to, I've had a chance to talk to a lot of the representatives who are serving for the first time, and the feedback has just been, fantastic. They're all very excited to do it. Like as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have a lot of people who are excited about running again, and really, I think people were nervous last time about, what it would mean if they won, right? And the commitment. And I think people now see the benefit, and I think people realize how much good they can do while they're up there, and they can be part of these big events.
But you gotta pace yourself.
And, right.
And first of all, I say you've got to take everything personal, but professionally. Okay.
Sure.
If you don't take it personal, when you first start out, you want to do everything because you think that's necessary. Well, all of a sudden, by the end of the year, you can't do everything.
Right.
Because I know a person, who it's their first term, they're up in Lebanon, New Hampshire tonight at a meeting. I said, why? And they said, well, I want to learn about this. And I was up in Keene, and this is all good, but you got to really pace yourself.
Sure. That's a big state.
Yes, and you have to plan on, you have to trust the people in that part of the state who are doing something, like in the committee meetings. I think we've talked about this. If you come out of the committee meeting, it's 18-1 or 18-0, then you know both Republicans and Democrats have voted for it.
Sure.
You know it's either going to be a vote that's going to be whatever the 18 is, for or against, because you've got to trust that. You've got to believe that. You have to have that. And so my first time that I ran, I was exactly that. The second time I slowed down a little. All right, I get everything done, but do it in a more efficient way.
Sure.
Many times phone calls, believe it or not, are as good as sometimes being there.
Sure.
Now we have Skype. I mean, all these meetings, you're going to be able to...
Right, get into...
Oh,
you can be anywhere.
Yeah, right.
So, the one thing I wanted to bring up is that if you are out there, if you're watching the show, if you know anybody who you think would be interested in running as a Democrat, even if you're independent now, but think, maybe you'd like to run and you'd like to come over and join the Democrats, please reach out to someone from the city committee, either myself, one of the current reps.
No. Do find David. You're the one
Yes.
to go to, because you know who's going to run and who's not. Look, what we would like is, if you like the people who are there, the city committee, then we don't want to add one extra to the mix, meaning, but it does happen.
If it happens, it happens.
It happens.
We don't.
It happens.
I think.
But come in and learn what the party is first.
Exactly, and see if it's really for you before you
I'll tell you what happened to me. I was called and asked by Jane Clements, we'd like you to run. So I went down there, I got the paperwork. She called me. She said, no, we got somebody else. So, okay, 2 years later, she calls and she says, look, we're going to really need you this time. So I go up there, we get a picture, I'm ready to sign. She says, no, we got somebody else who's going to run. So I said, okay. I wasn't mad.
Yeah.
I just said, all right, I want to be a good Democrat. The third time she called, I said, excuse me, Jane, I'm going down, I'm going to put my $2 down, and you're going to help me from day one. And she did.
Yeah, and she was a long-term chair. She did a great job.
Oh, she's what a
hardworking.
And also Ben, her son, and
her husband,
her
Michael,
husband, Mike. Nashua's a better place.
Yep, absolutely. But you can go to our website, www.nashuademocrats.com or nashuademocrats.org to get more information. We have a meeting coming up, our regular city committee meeting, Monday, May 12th. From about 6 to 8:30. We're still hammering down a location, but if you check on the website, we'll be able to give you that location, hopefully early next week. And this is going to be our Nashua Summit. It's going to be a lot of people from the state party, from the different candidates who are around to get reports from
Do you have a
campaigns.
telephone number you can give them?
Email's the best if you want to
Okay.
reach me, and it's just dave.tenza, it's tencza@gmail.com.
And we've got about 30 seconds. My name is Ken Gidge, and you can get me at Gidge World, which is our website. You can also get me at kgidge@aol.com, or my phone number, which is 603-864-9332. We got 23 seconds.
Oh, what do we... Well, 23 seconds. Representative, good to be back here at the Library of Congress.
The Library of Congress, that's correct.
We're looking forward to continuing these shows on a regular basis now, and bringing in a lot of the candidates, a lot of the people who you're going to hear from this fall. So thank you for joining us here, us Democrats on Nashua Access Nashua. Sorry, thanks.
This Social Security measure gives at least some protection.
For anybody to hand this out, we're asking for a chance to have the people who will receive the benefit to earn their way. The same principle established under the Social Security system in the 30s.
It is no longer acceptable to discuss women's rights as separate from human rights.
I know we can come together to face down the challenges of our own time.